did PepsiCo create the role of Chief Scientific Officer, and what are your aspirations for the role?
Great question. So you're correct. I'm the first Chief Scientific Officer at PepsiCo. I'm also the first overall head of R&D at PepsiCo, and the first R&D person to report to the chairman and CEO of the company. If you think about it from a broad industry perspective, there are very few companies in the food and beverage sector that actually have one overall head of both R&D. And what's also interesting to me is I'm the first physician brought in the food and beverage industry as the head of R&D. So I find myself in a number of firsts. And the last one I'll add there, this is my first time in working for a food and beverage company, and even for a consumer packaged good company. So I'm still in the student rookie mode by any definition of the criteria. But that's the fun of it. I like to think of myself as a career-long student. Now, what's the sort of perspective that can bring? I think if you think of research and development, research, when one thinks of research, you're thinking about gaining new knowledge, gaining new information, and thinking about how to utilize that for the benefit of the business, the benefit of our consumers, on a longer-term time frame. When one thinks of development, one thinks of translational, what I call translational research, where you're taking knowledge and actually delivering it in the context of either a service or a product or both, right? And the opportunity to have under one leadership both of those gives a very unique ability to balance both short-term, medium-term, and long-term from the same office. And I think that's the power of it. Of course, the trade-off is that you're trying to balance multiple legs of this sort of strategy, but the strength, and I think clearly we've made the decision, and I very much believe that having one architect who thinks about those perspectives and tries to make the decision, all decisions ultimately are trade-offs, whether it's allocation of resources, efforts, people, focus, or direction, and it's not at one at the expense of the other. You're really trying to make sure you get both of those. It is sometimes in the short term, I always sort of, my favorite statement to my people is, you can kill research totally, and for the next quarter, 6 months, a year, your P&L will look great. You have no expense. 2 years from now, you start to pay the price. 3 years from now, you start to pay the price. Not only do you fall behind the industry, but coming back to sustainability, you don't have the ability now to continue that momentum. And it takes a long time to recover, and you can think of many industries where companies have lost their way, tried to recover, and sometimes have never recovered their leadership.
So how does PepsiCo hope to use the power of brand, marketing, and communication to encourage consumers to adopt healthier lifestyles in ways that evolve naturally and comfortably with your portfolio?
You know, I'm going to leverage my experience. Most of my career was as a clinician. And my job as a clinician in the clinical setting was first and foremost to educate and help my patients make the right choices for their health. That's what I did. That's what you do when you go to the doctor here. It's not just about a prescription. It's I need to know what I need to do, okay, to stay healthy. I look at that principle and I say, what do we need to do to help consumers make the right choice? There's a similarity there. Mm-hmm. One, they have to have the right information. We need to do our part to provide understandable information in a readily available manner for the consumer to be able to understand it. But we can't do it in isolation. It has to be an industry-wide perspective, because otherwise we'll get all sorts of confusion. So there's one, and I'm a firm believer in industry and government coming together and saying this is the one way we know currently, based on everything we know, is the best way to communicate information and what the most accurate information is. Okay? That's one. The second is provide products in an accessible manner so that when an individual wants to consume, they're available conveniently, right? Part of compliance, or part of making the right choices, is actually convenience and accessibility. Okay? If it's not readily available to you, you're less likely to use it, right? It applies to many things, not just food and beverage. So it's accessibility and convenience. And this comes back to product design. Design not only what's in the package, but the packaging, the bottle, etc., everything, right? Do we have that done right? The third in this is very unique somewhat to food and beverage. I mentioned this earlier. Nobody wants to make the right choice for their body if they're trading off for taste. This is not taking a medicine, and even we know from that industry, compliance is not very good. And part of the reason is, if it don't taste good and if I don't feel like it's doing me any good, I don't want it. So in actual fact, I think the industry can help people make the right choices by actually marrying the right choice with the right taste and the right emotional satisfaction by saying this is easy because not only is it good for me, I like it.
With sort of time as the final focus for our conversation, I want to invite you to predict the future for us a little tiny bit, and to ask, what way do you think that PepsiCo will have most changed the way it does business and its product portfolio by about 2020? What can you see on the horizon? What's it going to demand of you as an organization in terms of ongoing evolution to succeed and meet the changing demands of consumers and society that you've already talked about in the course of the interview?
Well, let's look at some quantitative stuff. We've made some public commitments. We've made those commitments not only because we believe them, but we're going to put the resources, the focus to actually deliver. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We've already said we're going to lower the sodium content of our major global brands by 25%, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to reduce saturated fat by 15% of our major brands. We're going to decrease sugar content, added sugar, by 20%. If you think about the year 2020, by that time, if we've decreased salt, sugar, saturated fat, we were the industry leader in taking out trans fats from our snacks.
Mm-hmm.
We're increasing whole grain. We're increasing fruit and vegetable. And then if you think about what our CEO and chairman has stated, we're going to take our $10 billion of good-for-you business, fruit, vegetable, whole grains, functional beverages such as Gatorade, and make these businesses a $30 billion business, then you know what? We've now got a significantly transformed business that's not only producing products that taste great, as I said, doesn't taste great, nobody's going to take them, and at the same time, we've made the products healthier and added products, platforms that have significantly grown our business. I think this will be I don't know if I'm going to be around in 2020. By that time, I'm in my 60s, and it'd be a great time to look back at this over a decade of work and be able to say, you know what? It'd be a great time to retire at that point and say, this was a leadership team that collectively, across the world, we helped shape the company and hopefully the industry.
Well, it seems appropriate to end on a transformation note. I know we're close to the top of the hour, so I would just say thank you so much. Good luck in your role as Chief Scientific Officer, and thanks for sharing some views with us today.
Thank you for your questions. They're fun ones.